are, mister. Just what do you think you're
Hello,
doing?
Dad. It's me, Butters.
I know that. What do you...
This is for all the times I got grounded.
Oh!
I think it's safe to say at this point that Butters is one of the best characters on South Park, which is a pretty impressive accomplishment, because let's be real, the show has tons of strong and lovable characters. I mean, we're talking some real heavy hitters like Eric Cartman, Randy Marsh, Mr. Garrison, the Heart of Walmart.
Now you shall see my true form!
Yeah, he was only in the show for like 15 seconds, but I love him, goddammit. Butters has somehow managed to outdo almost every character on the show, despite not having a proper speaking role until 39 episodes into the series, which is kinda crazy if you think about it. Most fan favorite characters have been around since day one, and some of them haven't been in the show for years, but are still beloved. But despite his late arrival, Butters has aggressively risen through the ranks of popularity. Today there's tons of Butters related merchandise, most listicles have him in the top 3 spot for best character, if not the number 1 spot, and he even managed to fully replace Kenny for a while back in season 6.
No, gosh darn it, fellas, my name's not Kenny. Kenny's dead. Okay, not Kenny. But I'm not gonna wear this coat anymore either. I should be able to be you guys' friends without wearing Kenny's old coat.
Shh, be quiet, not Kenny. The Maury Povich Freak Show is on.
Oh, all right then.
Combine that with the fact that he's basically a main character at this point, given how often he shows up in episodes, and I think it goes without saying that South Park just wouldn't be the same without him. But how does something like that happen? How does a character like Butters end up becoming such an integral part of the show? Well, in my opinion, those questions are best answered by examining the qualities that make Butters so great in the first place. Or, to put it in generic YouTube video essay terms, who is Butters?
Lou, I've got some, oh no!
When South Park started, Butters was nobody. He was just a background character that acted like all the other kids in class who weren't the 4 boys or Wendy. Cause you see, back then, Butters was just a character design, a blue coat and a poof of yellow hair. He was a generic kid that had no distinct personality traits and didn't even have a name. Yeah, according to South Park Studios, for the first 2 seasons, they just called him Puff Puff, which is delightful, but I feel like I'm being lied to here because I could have sworn Stan called him Swanson back then.
Jordan, Swanson, pull forward. We need backup.
How do you explain that one, South Park Studios? Yeah, that's what I thought. Websites can't talk. But yeah, this wasn't Butters yet. This was an imposter wearing Butters' skin and clothing. And for the first 2.5 seasons, that was the best we were gonna get. Just a Butters looking kid in the background of most episodes. But shortly after the South Park movie, which also contained this fake version of Butters, everything would change thanks to one man. The animation director for South Park, Eric Stow.
We did a slight little one where it was a Butters episode.
Yeah, this guy right here, this is Butters. You might not be able to hear it, because, well, I'm gonna be honest, I don't actually hear it either. But according to Trey Parker, the character Butters was based off of Eric Stow and the way he speaks.
He's our buddy, he's our little buddy, he's our Butters, who's my Butters, and then he became Butters, and we're like, we're gonna put you in the show, Butters. Yeah, he's like, well, you better not, I'll get awful mad.
My name is Butters, and I'm a little pussy who won't help his friends make money.
Wow, that was pretty good.
Honestly, I don't even care if I can hear it or not, because thanks to these 3 guys working together, an amazing character was born. No longer were we subjected to the likes of Swanson or Puff Puff, because starting with the season 3 episode, 2 guys naked in a hot tub, there was only Butter.
Are you sure you can do this, Butter?
So close. Though I do gotta admit, the name Butterscotch sounds a little closer to butterscotch than Buttersstotch, but that's not important. Other than that slight hiccup with his name, Butters was introduced to the world that day, and I gotta say, it was quite an introduction. Because in this first appearance of his, Butters feels like the Butters we know. He's nice, playful, lawful, well-mannered, a total Melvin.
You think you had a bad night? I had to hang out all night with these friggin' Melvins.
Oh, dude, weak.
Super weak.
Now this episode centers around Stan being at a meteor shower party with Butters, Pip, and Dougie. And the initial focus is on how boring his night is gonna be since he's stuck in the basement with the 3 biggest geeks from his school. So to get the point across, they do a lot to emphasize how lame these kids really are. Which obviously includes Pip being Pip, but it also means establishing Butters and what type of character he'll be. You know, what kind of stuff does he like? What makes him tick?
Hey, you know what we could do with these lady clothes, huh? Why, we could play Charlie's Angels.
Yeah, that's That's Butters alright. I mean, his voice is a little off and it'll stay that way until season 5, but that's definitely Butters. This episode would establish what I like to call the Pip replacement years, which is basically when Butters' main purpose as a character was to mirror Pip and follow a similar archetype. You know, because they're both well-natured kids that like dorky things, and that makes them unpopular and easy to bully. Plus, the episode even goes so far as to pair them together, which I think really drives that point home.
All right, here we go. Whippy tippy choo choo, cha la la la. Whippy tippy choo choo, cha la la la. Whippy tippy choo choo, cha la la.
But even though they have a lot in common, where they differ is that Butters is more assertive and dutiful. Pip usually just does what other people tell him to do, with the only exception being in the Great Expectations episode, but that doesn't really count in my opinion, because it's just a one-off that takes place before the 20th century. But Butters, on the other hand, will usually stand up for what he believes in, whether that's something small like getting to be Jacqueline Smith because playing Charlie's Angels was his idea, or something important, like when he tries to get the adults to go outside and speak with the ATF so that they don't all get murdered.
Well, I'm awful disappointed in you drinking and carrying on this way. Why, you should be ashamed of yourselves. If you don't get outside right now and tell those Army guys you're not religious fantastics, there's gonna be heck to pay. Heck, I tell ya.
Now, even though Butters had a big role in this episode and his core traits feel very defined here, he wouldn't fully replace Pip until the end of season 4. I'd say it took them around a season or so to really cement his personality and his standing within the school, which is why shortly after his debut, we got moments that now feel very out of place for him, like when he calls the girls a bunch of skanky whores in Cartman's Silly Hate Crime, or when he bullies the homeschooled kid in Hooked on Monkey Phonics.
Well, you best do what he says, homeschool kid. Well, this is our part of the playground, see? And if you don't follow our rules, well, we're gonna duct tape you to the bench. Okay,
Have a nice second half of the day, Nerdo.
Yeah, why, you shouldn't be such a smart-mouth Mr. Know-It-All.
But as season 4 went on, they really fine-tuned his character and honed back in on what we saw in the Meteor Shower trilogy. They began to portray him as exclusively innocent and good-natured, even going so far as to make him one of the only kids on the show that doesn't swear or use vulgar language. And they also continued to lower his status among his peers, going from being one of the kids joining in on the bullying to being turned into a giant get-well card for Kyle.
Go on, Butters.
I don't wanna.
Butters, go on.
Well, all right then. We're so sorry you're not feeling well. We hope you're better soon. So we're bringing you some sunshine by singing you this tune. Everybody misses you, and though we hate to cause a fuss, we'd like to say get well soon, and please don't die on us.
Or worst of all, when he's offered as a sacrifice to the North American Man-Boy Love Association.
Well, sure, I'm a team player, I guess.
Well, Butters, there is no I in team.
You mean to expect me to go out there and let all those horny old men have their way with my fragile person? Well, just what team is this anyway?
Just go, Butters, we're running out of time.
Oh, all right then.
Yes, this is when they really started to use his character more frequently while using Pip less, which was obviously a great decision. I mean, I'm a Pip defender, as you know, but Butters is clearly the superior choice. However, despite his prominence, his overall role in season 4 was still pretty small. He'd have a moment or two in some episodes, but it was usually just some minimal thing like him being the flag waver during the sled race, or him being worried that Timmy will go to hell because he can't confess in church. But slowly, as the season went on, his roles got more significant. He helped the boys make a cutout for their Christmas video. He inspired the kids to make a better Thanksgiving play because he was so impressed by what the kindergartners were doing.
Thanksgiving dinner, let's all eat. E-I-E-I-O. And all our dinner will by some Indians. E-I-E-I-O. Happy Thanksgiving.
That's it? We worked our asses off to compete with that?
Butters told us their play was awesome. Wow, did you see that? They had a horse, too.
God, I love that bit. And then, of course, was his most significant role in season 4, which came in episode 16 after the town had been taken over by kids. Here, Butters plays the mechanic of Smiley Town, where he gets multiple scenes that actually drive the plot forward, and, in my opinion, some of the funniest moments in the entire episode.
I'm gonna be sacrificed to the provider.
Now, first season 5 continued on in a pretty similar fashion. Butters was playing larger roles in the episodes, he was showing up more frequently than he ever had before, and his personality and characterization was becoming more consistent. In fact, I'd say that by this point, he had graduated into becoming a full-on secondary character like Wendy. But in the second half of season 5, something would happen that would forever change his character. In the episode How to Eat With Your Butt, Butters accidentally takes a bad picture on picture day, and the reaction that this gets from his parents laid the foundation for what would eventually become a defining trait of his character: getting aggressively grounded.
Butters, are you ready to stop with the stupid faces?
I sure am, Dad.
All right, you can take the paper bag off.
Thanks, Dad. I'm sorry I was bad.
Oh, very funny, young man. You think it's clever to make yourself up like a girl?
But Dad, I didn't like a...
Did you use your mother's makeup? She's gonna be furious.
I'm not wearing makeup, Dad.
Put that bag back on.
Yes, sir.
Ah, yes, Butters and Getting Grounded are like a match made in heaven. They're perfect for each other, like chocolate and milk, peanut butter and jelly, Pokemon and having PS2 level graphics, but still charging full price for it anyways. Getting Grounded Too Much is one of the single most important additions that were made to Butters' character. Not only because it's one of the main joke types that he gets throughout the series, but because it does so much to evolve and explain his personality. Like the fact that he's always been portrayed as timid. Initially, it just seemed like a funny character quirk, but with the added context of him always being subjected to unfair punishments over basically nothing, we start to see his personality in a new light, because his demeanor is a product of his environment. I mean, let's be real, the kid is straight up abused by his parents, particularly his dad, Steven. They'll gaslight him, deny him sympathy, over-punish him, blow up over absolutely nothing.
Now, would you mind telling me what Hamburger Helper is doing in this glass of milk? Why is Hamburger Helper in a glass of milk, Butters?
I have no idea, sir.
Like, you can feel however you want about it, but at the end of the day, his parents are assholes, and they treat him terribly, despite the fact that he's clearly an amazing kid. Plus, in the episode Freak Strike, we get definitive proof that Steven beats Butters.
Don't you hi Mom and Dad us, you little punk!
Oh, Dad, you don't even know the trouble you're in, mister. What'd I do?
Do you think you're tough now? Answer me!
Yeah, that's pretty up. So it makes perfect sense that when he's with the other kids, Butters exhibits many signs of low self-esteem. He lets people walk all over him. He constantly succumbs to peer pressure. He's terrified of disobeying authority figures. It's not just politeness, it's trauma. Butters is timid because his father punishes him over every little thing. He's been forced to walk on eggshells his entire life. And that's why Butters almost never stands up for himself, even though he's otherwise willing to stand up for what he believes in. And that's because his self-esteem is too fractured, at least in these earlier parts of the show. Now, while we technically don't see this abusive side of his parents until later in season 5, there is a moment in season 4 that hints towards this sort of dynamic.
Hey there, good looking. What's your name? Butters, ma'am. Well, Butters, would you like to slap my titties around? Oh, well, no thanks, ma'am. I'll get in trouble again.
Season 5 did a lot to advance Butters as a character, but I'd still consider most of it to be part of the Pip replacement era, because ultimately he was still just a side character. Not all that different from someone like Craig or a Clyde, just maybe with a little more characterization and personality. But at the end of the season, he'd get catapulted into basically main character status thanks to two main things. One was that in the penultimate episode of the season, Kenny died. Like, actually died without showing up again in the next episode, which left a hole to be filled. And two, which is probably the most important factor here, was the season finale, Butters' very own episode.
Who's the boy that can laugh at a storm cloud, turn a frown into a smile for free? Who's the kid with a heart full of magic? Everyone knows it's Butters.
That's me.
Yes, I know, the intro goes unbelievably hard. It will get stuck in your head for multiple days. But yeah, this was the second time since Not Without My Anus that an episode of South Park focused on someone other than the four main boys. The first being Pip's very own episode, which only further draws parallels between them. In this case, it centered around the misadventures of Butters as he accidentally exposes to his mom that his dad is secretly having sex with men at a bathhouse. God damn it, South Park. This is why I love you. Now, obviously, this discovery really upsets Linda and causes her to try and murder Butters by putting him in a car and pushing it into the river.
You know, I think the car might be moving, Mom. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the car's moving. Looks like I'm heading for the water.
Shh. It's okay, baby. Mommy will be with you very soon.
I think that, yep, it looks like the car's filling up with water. Yeah, I think maybe now might be a good time to come back inside the car and drive, Mom.
Now, first of all, I think it goes without saying that this is one of the best episodes in the entire series. It's funny as hell, the storyline is absolutely ridiculous, and it gave us some Puerto Rican guy.
Mrs. Dodge, what did the kidnapper look like?
Puerto Rican.
Was he tall? Short?
He was average Puerto Rican height. Please, just bring our baby back to me.
Chris, Linda, you know O.J. Simpson.
Oh, sure.
O.J.'s wife was killed by some Puerto Rican guy, too.
Yep, it was some Puerto Rican guy, all right.
If you agree that this episode is amazing, I want to see some Google gobbles in the comments right now. But aside from this being a top tier South Park episode, it also does a few important things for Butters as a character. The obvious is that it cements him as part of the main cast. Now that he's had a lead role in an A-plot only episode, Butters has become one of the most important secondary characters on the entire show, which is reflected in the following season, where he ends up taking Kenny's place for several episodes or leading the side plots in others. But in addition to that, when it comes to the development of his character, this episode establishes a few important qualities. One is his optimistic attitude. And yeah, while this was already a character trait of Butters, this episode is the first time we see it truly tested in the face of dark situations.
Oh, whoopee! Finally! Well, now that the car has come to a stop, it's safe for me to unfasten my seatbelt.
Similarly, this episode does a lot to reinforce how innocent Butters really is. I mean, the kid catches his dad cheating on his mom with guys, and even bears witness to his mom having a complete psychological breakdown.
Paint, must be made clean. New, never be clean. Must kill. The only way?
But it all pretty much completely goes over his head. But that's partially because he's a kid and he doesn't exactly know what he's seeing, but it's also because he doesn't think to question it. He doesn't even try to put two and two together. He just happily assumes that his parents are good people, and so whatever it is that he caught them doing, it must be something good too. It's only at the very end of the episode, after seeing the terrible state they're in from all the lying, that Butters finally steps forward and does something about it.
You know, you can call a shovel an ice cream machine, but it's still a shovel, Mom and Dad. And you can call a lie whatever you want, but it's still a no good stinking lie. And when you start covering up one lie with another lie, that's when you get into real trouble. But I've just about had it up to here with you two.
This role reversal moment where Butters lectures his parents and stands up for his values is among the first of many instances where his wholesome perspective is used to deliver a poignant message, which is one of my personal favorite aspects of his character, because his knack for understanding what's actually important and seeing complex situations through the simple lens of a kid leads to some of the most profound moments in the entire show. And they always hit extra hard because they're coming from Butters, who doesn't usually get confrontational. Now my instinct here is to show the Raisins clip because I love that clip, but I already talked about that in my South Park Saddest Moments video, so I'm just gonna show the bi-curious one instead.
I am sick and tired of everyone telling me I'm confused. I wasn't confused until other people started telling me I was. I'm not gonna be confused anymore just because you say I should be. My name is Butters. I'm 8 years old, I'm blood type O, and I'm bi-curious. And even that's okay, because if I'm bi-curious, and I'm somehow made from God, then I figure God must be a little bi-curious himself.
These moments would eventually become more prominent as the show continued, but they all started with the ending to his very own episode. And from there, the character would quickly grow and develop at a speed that outpaced pretty much everyone else on the show. Like take season 6 for example, that's when Butters replaced Kenny to become one of the 4 main boys. For the majority of his time in their group, Butters was basically like the boys' personal bitch.
What names do they call you at school?
I guess they call me a Turnball Boy and a Ball Chin Boy. When I'm walking, they'll say, "Hey, there goes Chin Balls."
And in these first few episodes, even though he was featured more heavily, he was still the same old Butters that we come to know a season earlier. But a few episodes in, his character really started to change with the introduction of Professor Chaos.
Fine. If I'm to be an outcast, so be it. I'm through doing what others tell me to do, and I am sick of this world and the stinky people in it. From now on, I will dedicate my life to bringing chaos to the world that has dejected me. I will become the greatest supervillain the world has ever seen.
Professor Chaos, the evil alter ego of Butters, added a layer of nuance to him that very few characters on the show had at that point, which makes sense when you consider that the early years of South Park were less focused on deep characters and more focused on placing those characters in ridiculous situations. But that changed with Professor Chaos, because you see, Chaos was meant to be everything that Butters wasn't. Where Butters is friendly, agreeable, innocent, obedient, and moral, Chaos is supposed to be mean, confrontational, disobedient, and evil. Yeah, he's bad to the bone. He'll mix up your order at the restaurant, or maybe even leave the backyard hose running for too long.
Not long now, General Disarray, and our horrible plan will be complete. Hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, so Chaos isn't actually evil or the opposite of Butters, because let's be real, Butters is too innocent to be capable of actually dreaming up anything that evil, but it marks an important development for his character because of what it symbolizes. Chaos is Butters' way of rejecting the world around him and escaping the person he's had to become. He's simply taken way too much from his peers and his parents, and he's finally hit a breaking point. So with Chaos, he gets a chance to take back the things that he's missing from his life, like how he finds freedom by rejecting the rules that otherwise dominate his existence. And now that gives him a sense of control that he usually doesn't have. Professor Chaos doesn't give in to peer pressure. In fact, thanks to Dougie from the Meteor Shower Party, aka his loyal follower General Disarray, Butters gets to be at the top of a social hierarchy for once, which I personally think of as a stepping stone along his road to actually gaining some balls. Or the first stepping stone towards losing his mind.
Sorry, guys, you have me confused. I think Butters was a twerpy little loser kid whose parents didn't love him. My name's Vic Chaos.
Later in the show, Butters will find confidence outside of his alter ego, but in season 6, this was the first time we'd seen a character really commit to changing themselves in a significant way. The only other comparable example I can think of would be Mr. Garrison accepting that he's gay. But that's not really the same, because it had more to do with Garrison learning to be comfortable with a side of himself that he previously denied. Whereas with Butters, Professor Chaos is his way of overcoming what he perceives as weaknesses in his character, which is kinda more tragic, honestly. Now, personally, I just love that Professor Chaos is another example of South Park nailing the whole kids being kids thing. Because even though he's trying to be bad, he still operates under the logic of a 10-year-old, which makes him incapable of wreaking havoc and chaos the way he wants to. Hell, even his costume doesn't quite live up to how he thinks people will perceive it.
Wait right here, Stan. I warn you, you may not like what you're about to see. Now you know my terrible secret!
You're gay? It's fine if you're gay, Butters. I don't care.
Huh? No, I'm Professor Chaos.
But we have to teach our parents a lesson, Butters. We're running away. Help me find the perfect place to run away to.
Maybe I used a little too much silver.
But despite his failed attempts at being bad, Professor Chaos shows us that there's more to Butters than what we get on the surface. And in my opinion, it's what brings us out of the Pip replacement era for his character. Because by this point, he's developed into his own unique personality that isn't so easily compared to any other character on the show. And this version of Butters that we get in season 6 is, for the most part, the Butters we get for the next several seasons. Because now that he's properly developed, the focus shifts away from evolving his character and onto how they can get the most value out of his character. Whether that's for comic relief or communicating a message of some kind. However, in season 7, the seeds of evolution would once again be planted when they decided to pair him up with Eric Cartman in the episode Casa Bonita.
Whoa, wait! Oh my god! I see it! I see it! It's a meteor! Oh my god!
Oh my god! Does it look like it's getting closer?
It is! It is getting closer! Oh my god!
Oh my god!
I mean, technically they were paired together as early as Kenny dies, but Casa Bonita is the first time it happened in a significant way. Now, I've talked about this episode at length, so if you want to hear my thoughts on it, you know where to go. But this character pairing turned out to be one of the greatest things to happen to South Park, because Butters and Cartman are such a good duo. They're such polar opposite characters that the contrast between them is basically a guaranteed recipe for comedy. I mean, think about it. When you take the most selfish and manipulative kid on the show and pair him with the most innocent and naive kid, you're gonna have a good time. Yeah, this ain't French frying when you're supposed to pizza. My name is not Thumper. Naturally, this character duo of Eric and Butters ended up becoming a staple of South Park. We've gotten years and years of episodes with these two, and they're almost all amazing.
Shoot him, Butters!
No!
You have to shoot him, Butters! He's gonna warn all the Chinese and they're gonna kill your parents! Do it! Do it!
Ah!
Ow! Ah! Ow!
Oh, dude, you shot him in the dick.
But something happened after we started getting these kinds of stories. Not right away, but slowly, as a result of the time he spends with Eric. Butters' character starts to change again, and this time it's directly because of their dynamic. See, their stories typically revolve around Cartman taking advantage of Butters in some way, with Butters seemingly happy to take the abuse. Most likely because he's used to being treated like crap at home, so it's probably just normal to him. Poor Butters. But starting at around season 12, there was a notable shift in Butters' attitude. He started growing a backbone. He didn't automatically put up with Cartman's crap as easily. I mean, he still did sometimes, but less. We actually see signs of this starting from pretty early on in their relationship, like the ending of Osimo, where he gets revenge on Eric for the first time, or even the end of Christian Rock Hard after Cartman sabotages their band.
You, Eric.
But in those episodes, even though he has a moment where he stands up to Eric, he's still largely falling for his tricks or participating in some plan that doesn't benefit him. It's only in the episode Super Fun Time that we really start to see a noticeable change in his attitude.
Dude, this place shreds! What should we do first? We should get back to Pioneer Village, that's what we should do!
Now slowly, from here, Butters has begun to develop a sense of confidence in himself that was largely absent in the earlier seasons. And I think the reason that happened is because after so many episodes of him falling victim to Cartman, there had to be a change. Both from the perspective of the show's writing, so that things didn't get too formulaic and dull for the audience, and also from the perspective of Butters as a character. Because having someone bully him, especially someone who isn't an authority figure like his parents, was the catalyst he needed to grow. It led to us getting moments like in Breast Cancer Show Ever, where he cheers Wendy on as she beats Eric's ass. Or even more recently, the episode Dick and Bows, where he takes Cartman's new restaurant away from him after being used for his money and hard work.
Wait, so you two have already discussed some kind of deal?
Oh, yes. Butters and I have been talking, and we think that my little Eric deserves to get exactly what he's been wanting for a long time.
I don't want to be here. I want to be in Dick and Bows. Dick and Bows is awesome. This place sucks. Please. I want Dick and Bows.
That episode's a great example of how hard-working Butters is, by the way. Highly recommend watching it if you haven't seen it. Easily my favorite episode from season 26. But yeah, even though the changes may have happened slowly, getting fed up with Cartman's bullying is what brought us into the modern era of Butters' stotch, which I think officially kicked off with the episode Butterballs, where he finally puts his foot down and fights back against bullying altogether. Except in that episode, the bully wasn't Cartman, it was his grandma.
Oh, heavens to Betsy, Linda. This is such a yummy, yummy ham. I just love your cooking.
What's the matter, Butters?
Nothing, Dad. Just a little gassy.
Oh, well, don't fart on Grandma. She's trying to enjoy her ham.
Yeah, Butters' grandma is a terrible human being, which probably explains why his dad also sucks as a parent. A little cycle of hate, if you will, but the BoJack Horseman kind, not the Naruto one. By the later seasons of the show, Butters is markedly more confident and sure of himself. And as expected, we've seen him use this confidence for good, like when he helped Father Maxie, who kept getting ripped apart by the townspeople for being a Catholic priest.
You know, at school, the kids used to all make fun of me sometimes. One kid would say something mean, and then the other kids would laugh. I know how lousy it feels. I learned to just walk away, not give them all the satisfaction. I know it seems impossible. I thought I'd be a punching bag my whole life, but now, I'm one of the popular kids. I even get invited to board game night at Stan's house. My point is, sometimes, you just gotta put yourself out there.
I know I didn't provide context for why people would bully a priest, but I think it's funnier that way, so I'm just not gonna do it. Of course, this isn't the first time that we've seen Butters act compassionately towards others, but it feels strikingly different to how it might have gone down in earlier seasons, as he's now more capable of taking on a leadership-style role. That's something that seems to have come with his newfound sense of confidence. But on the flip side, that same confidence has given way to a bit of a darker side to his character. For one, it's now much more common to see him swear or use vulgar language. I mean, he still does it sparingly, but it doesn't have the same impact or shock factor that it did in the first half of the show, because we're a little more accustomed to seeing this edgier side of him now. He's also become a source of conflict in some of the more recent seasons. For one, he's moved past innocent schemes with Professor Chaos and has done some actually villainous things, like in the episode Franchise Prequel, where he intentionally sabotages the boys' attempts to get a Netflix deal by spreading lies about them over Facebook. Then later, in season 20, he antagonizes the girls at school by leading a Wieners Out protest in the wake of the Skank Hunt saga. A little MGTOW moment that fuels the gender war happening at their school. And of course, don't think I forgot, there's the time that he verbally destroys everybody at school in the episode Going Native, just because he's pissed off about Ben Affleck.
You guys think Cartman is the only selfish piece of crap at this school? You're all fake and stuck up, and none of you have the courage to tell Jimmy that his jokes aren't funny. The only kid here with any sense of dignity is Kenny, and the rest of you have your heads up your butts.
Now this next connection is admittedly not as strong, but his confidence and edgier side seems to be connected to his propensity for business. Like, we've now seen multiple instances in the show where he seems to have a genuinely good instinct for making money off of people. There's obviously his future as an NFT hustler, but also the time he sold vape pens to kindergartners and even started his own pimping business at school.
Hey, Wendy! Wendy! Bitch, bitch, don't you want to start making some real money?
Leave me alone.
Well, you were made for the playground, bitch. You should be out there working. Don't you want a new lunchbox? Nice new coat? I can get all that for you, bitch.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but I feel like we only started seeing this side of him after he started gaining some confidence. Now, I've seen a lot of people say that these edgier moments mean that Butters has changed as a character and that he's not wholesome anymore. And to that, I say, that's bullshit. That argument does not hold up under scrutiny, because outside of those instances, he's continued to act like the same Butters we've always loved up to as recently as the Ozempic special. Like that Father Maxi episode came after the Wieners Out stuff, and the whole brand thing from Worldwide Privacy Tour was more of a case of Butters falling victim to something that a bunch of people were falling victim to than an actual reflection on his character having changed. So as far as I'm concerned, Butters is still, by far, the most wholesome kid in town. Now here's where things get really interesting to me. With everything that's happened to Butters over the years, he's ended up becoming one of the most complex and unique characters on the show. There's really no other character like him at this point. Not even Pip would compare, God rest his French little soul. And that's created a deep contrast between Butters and the rest of South Park. And I mean both South Park the show and the town within it. So for us to properly end this video and understand what makes Butters so important, there's one last thing we need to talk about. And that's why that contrast matters so much. Or, to put it in generic video essay terms, Butters vs. South Park. Now, what do we know about South Park? Well, it's vulgar, it's offensive, it's absurd, it tears everyone apart no matter what side they're on, and it's full of characters who are selfish, immoral, cynical, and, well, assholes. Now compare that to Butters, who is innocent, naive, and optimistic. Butters is pretty much the opposite of everyone else in South Park, especially the other kids. He doesn't have that same jaded vibe about him, and he usually comes off as more childish than the other students at school, which even translates to the little things like playing Hello Kitty Island Adventure instead of World of Warcraft, which is now a real game, by the way. Or even the way he uses the urinal like a kindergartner. Hell, even Stan and Kyle, who were once always used to convey the lesson of the day, have evolved to become more cynical and self-absorbed as the show has gone on. But not Butters. Butters is the only one that feels like a real kid amongst all the other kids in town. And I think no one scene reflects that contrast better than this one.
I said what in the butt. I said what in the butt.
That's the wrong clip. This one.
Dude, how did you do that, Butters? Well, I just used my imagination.
You see, he could use his imagination because he was pure of heart. The evolution of Butters' character has created this unique dynamic where he's slowly become the opposite of everything else in the show. He's not like the other kids, he's not like the other adults who also tend to be selfish and cynical. He's simply not like the rest of South Park, which is why he's become such a great writing tool for creating funny and poignant stories. Because as a fish out of water, his values collide with the savagery of the South Park world, which not only leads to funny opportunities, but also lets the show use him to convey positive messages.
No thanks. I love life.
Huh? But you just got dumped.
Well, yeah, and I'm sad. But at the same time, I'm really happy that something can make me feel that sad. It's like, it makes me feel alive, you know? It makes me feel human. The only way I can feel this sad now is if I felt something really good before.
Yeah, I couldn't resist showing the clip in the end. It's just such a great example of how Butters can take a crazy episode and wrap it up in a wholesome way. But when you think about it, that's exactly how South Park has always been ending since the very first season, with some kind of positive takeaway cutting through the absurdity and cynicism. So you see, by moving in the opposite direction of everyone else in South Park, Butters has actually completely embodied the show. So forget Butters versus South Park. Butters is South Park. Yeah, that's right. I'm doing the Emblemin thing from the Hungry Box video because I think it's cool and I love it. At its core, South Park has always been a show that takes complicated situations and simplifies them by leveraging the perspective of a child. And it's through that simplified perspective that they're able to leave the viewer with an impactful takeaway on the subjects they're covering. But since Butters is the only character left who has maintained that childlike sense of wonder, he's ended up becoming a mirror of the show itself. He is the optimism hidden within their cynical world. He is the voice of reason cutting through the nonstop absurdity. He is the epitome of South Park, and his views align better with the core of the show than any other character since his inception. Yeah, he has his dark side, and sure, Sometimes he acts a bit out of character. I think everyone does that a bit here and there. But ultimately, despite his many nuances and his progression throughout the show, he's still the same innocent boy that was introduced to us back in season 3, with that same positive attitude that has remained a staple of his character despite everything that he's been through. So to answer that question that I asked at the beginning of this video, who is Butters? He's the heart of South Park.